Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of Community Conversations. Excuse me?
I was joining in to say Community Conversations with you.
I think you interrupted the intro.
I didn't interrupt the intro. I'm a part of the show tonight, so
If you're just your guest, if you're just joining us, it is Tuesday, July 15th, at least in the U.S., 7 p.m. on the East Coast in the U.S., and we're excited to be here. So as always, we'll give you a couple minutes to get in and get settled. If you're wondering who this is, we have a guest tonight, the lovely, beautiful, talented, smart, and ever so kind Reverend Dr. Caitlin O'Dunn. You need to put the doctor in your name now.
I know. I don't know why I don't like to put it. It's like it feels scary.
Feels scary?
I don't know.
I think you should add it. You earned it.
Okay, hold on. I don't know how to add it while we're on here, but maybe next time. I don't know that I can add it while we're on here. Can I add it while I'm on here? Okay, we're just gonna leave it. We're just gonna roll with it. Okay. Hi everyone. We're gonna pretend we didn't have that conversation. I have a little friend with me too.
What is it? That's I gave you her.
Yeah. Well, hi, everybody. I'm watching the chat here as Ethan and I just chit-chat with each other. I see James. I see Cash. I see, oh my gosh, there's so much that went on even before we got here. I see Love Lana and Wes and Jesse. We miss you already. Yeah, mostly me, not Ethan. I love
How's that, Katie?
How's what?
Your name.
Oh, no, I don't like that. That's not how you do it.
How do you do it?
It's doctor before the period. Can you just take the doc? I just like the Reverend. It bothers me. Okay. And I see Jonathan. It is Cash. Yeah, it's Rev Doctor. But yeah, I don't know. It makes me feel weird.
I'm going to change my name to how I was referred to at the conference.
Rev Doc. Yeah. Yeah, Cash.
There we go.
Katie's husband. Yes, you did get that at the conference.
That's it.
Okay, we can do that. That I feel comfortable with.
I know. I figured. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm so excited to see you on here too, Jonathan, and who else? Jen, and yeah, welcome everybody. Ethan and I are just kind of rambling on about things right now.
I think you were doing most of the talking. What's up, everyone? Good to see you. For those of you that were at the conference, Morgan Rondinelli, the 2025 Hero Award winner, Not Alone Notes, along with her bestie and sidekick, Molly, or actually co-hero, I should say. Not. Hey, Jonathan, good to see you. Welcome back. Jesse, we miss you too. For those of you that were at the conference, it was so good to see you. And for those of you, maybe you joined virtually or online if you weren't there in person. Regardless, let's get through the housekeeping and then we can jump into all the great conversation. Let's see here, because I don't know it after 7 years. So my name is Ethan, and with me tonight is Katie. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The IOCDF is not a crisis lifeline, a crisis hotline, I should say. If you're in crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room or call 911 or the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. As always, we want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. So at the end of the day, we're always here to support one another, as you know. And also, this is being broadcast on several social media platforms. Keep that in mind as we talk about our innermost private thoughts and secrets. Katie will start. Go.
Oh, gosh. Well, I want to note first, I may be compulsing. I was not laughing at your intro. I was laughing at Sydney on Facebook saying, so great to see you at the conference, Katie and Katie's husband. So I appreciate you continuing the joke.
You may be compulsing.
Y'all, we're gonna talk about kind of post-conference. OCD after the conference can feel really hard. And I'm super honest about that. I also see Amy, we think you're great too. And hi, Spence. So good to see you from Houston. And yes, Zach, this is not in fact a crisis line. So I appreciate you clarifying that. So yeah. I'm gonna let Ethan, who is the host of this stream, since I am a mere guest.
You are doing great. I am merely your husband. So
Okay,
why don't you kick things
change it
off?
back to your name. That only goes so. Change it back to your name.
No, I like this.
No, I want people to know. If we have new people, I want them to know who you are. James, hi. This is it's so great to have you on here. So tonight we are talking about post-conference blues.
Okay, fixed it.
Okay, well that's at least your name's in there. Ethan O'Dunn. Yes, Zach. Ethan.
Zach.
Sidebar, we are going to get into conference blues because I think that's why y'all are here, not me and Ethan talking about
Absolutely.
But I do want to say, when Ethan and I got married, the big kind of debate thing was I did not want to take Ethan's last name, Smith, and I did not, as you all know, I am still O'Dunn, but I wanted us to become the O Smiths. And he was not about it. But I thought it'd be super cool if we combined and we were Katie and Ethan O Smith.
No, I like O'Dunn Smith.
But the O Smiths, I think it'd be cool. It's just like
it sounds ridiculous.
So I'm curious what folks think. I thought that was super. Yeah, Zach, Mr. and Mrs. Katie O'Dunn. Yeah, there we go.
Actually, I thought you were going to tell the story where before we got married, you submitted a talk to the conference about how OCD followed us into our wedding.
Oh yeah,
we hadn't had our wedding yet, and then because we were going to have our wedding, and then the conference was coming. So I was like, why would you put that out there?
Yeah, I totally forgot that. Yeah, I submitted a whole thing about how OCD attacked our wedding before our wedding. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yep. All right. So first of all, welcome everybody. It's so good to see you. I really like a live stream right after the conference. For those of you that were there, you maybe had a hard time there, a hard time coming back. I know that it's so great to be in community and be with everyone. I know for a lot of people, it's really challenging and difficult. Hi, David. It's good to see you, our esteemed president of the board of directors who helped put on an amazing conference with the rest of the board and the staff. Thank you so much. O Smith has a nice ring.
See, Jonathan.
I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I really am.
Okay.
So, whether you were at the conference and you had an amazing time, whether you were triggered, which is so common for those of you that have, there's lots of stimulus, there's lots of conversation, there's lots of intensity, it's so hard to pace yourself at times. And then also leaving and coming home to your routine and feeling, especially if it's your first time or you live overseas, and coming back and feeling sort of that quietness and that emptiness set in, it can be really challenging. So I love to be here. Katie loves to be here to support, let you know that you are still not alone. You're stuck with us, whether we're here in person or live on a computer screen. But either way, the community and the IOCDF and Katie and I are here supporting everyone as we continue to navigate OCD and related disorders.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I would love to hear from folks in the chat, either who attended in person or who attended virtually, things that you liked about the conference, things that might have been challenging for you throughout the conference, because I think a lot of different things come up. And Ethan, we can talk about that a little bit too, and then kind of talk about coming post-conference, what that looks like. But go ahead, Ethan.
No, Beth coming in hot. I got a larger aquarium for an upgrade for 3 of my crabs. I was very uncomfortable touching it, decided to do a huge ERP. I wanted to throw my clothes in the washing machine, but decided to sleep in them. Awesome. I did it. Congratulations, Beth. I think that's a kick butt ERP. Melissa in the house. Good to see you. Conference withdrawals are real for sure. I won't, Jonathan, whatever. See, how do you feel about hyphenated names? I like hyphenated names, Zach.
Zach, so just to clarify, I swear we are really going to talk about conference blues, but with this, I am fine with hyphenated names, but Mr. Smith is not. Okay.
See, Cash and I finally agree on something. That's the first thing ever.
I am great with hyphenated names. However, I feel very strongly that if I have to change mine and hyphenate, that Ethan needs to do it too. So if I am going to go through all the paperwork of changing mine to O'Dunn Smith, Ethan will also have to change his to O'Dunn Smith, which, Ethan, how did you feel about that? Yeah, see, so Zach, all about the hyphenated name. Yeah, see, a lot of people are down with O Smith.
I think it's weird. I don't know. I was concerned about the kids, O'Dunn Smith. I thought it was a lot to spell when you're around 3 or 4 years old.
I just know CVS already can't get my prescriptions right with the apostrophe and O done. And adding a dash, I feel like it'll just evoke chaos.
What if we just make it all one word, no apostrophes, no dashes?
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, okay, this is totally irrelevant.
That's true, Morgan. Well, you only get the will if you hyphenate further. I like her thinking.
Ooh, that's fascinating. Okay, let's actually talk.
By the way, amazing story, just for those of you that weren't in the conference. Morgan, when she came out to the conference, completely lost her voice. And as I said before, she was one of the Hero Award winners for Not Alone Notes and had a big speech to give. She did not talk the entire conference. And lo and behold, the minute she walked up to the conference, the pedestal to accept her award, she opened her mouth and her voice came out. And it was a beautiful speech. It was, as she said, it was an OCD Con miracle, and that it was. So we appreciate the miracles at OCD Con, but it made us happy. So
that is an OCD Con miracle. It absolutely, and Jonathan, Morgan absolutely does rock. But I want to hear from folks things they loved about the conference and maybe things that were hard. And I see Jonathan at 710 says, I think for me, lack of sleep. Oof, 10,000%. And I think sometimes, even when we're in the midst of so many people, sometimes we can feel alone, right? And that can be really hard too. So thank you so much for naming that as we're maybe getting connected to folks for the first time. And I think even in the midst of so many other people navigating similar things, it also can feel lonely. And I so appreciate you naming that. Let's see, I'm looking.
I'm sorry, Morgan, that you have an ear infection now. That's no bueno.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's really hard. But yeah, so Ethan, I'm curious for you when you went to the conference early on. I just kind of want to go off of what Jonathan is sharing. What was challenging for you at some of your early conferences? Challenging for you both being there and then coming back? Because I think what Jonathan named is, I will say, Jonathan, I so felt that at my early on conferences. And for those of you who watched kind of our opening state of OCD in 2025, I talked about the first conference that I went to. I was really kind of nervous to talk to people and kind of felt like I didn't know anybody and all sorts. And it's such a wonderful, inclusive community. But I think that can also feel really hard. So yeah, Ethan, what was it like for you at your very first conference versus now? And Jonathan, by the way, we love you and you were so awesome. And I was so proud of you for continuing to come back again and again and connect with us. Seeing you was a big highlight.
You did. And not to reassure you, this isn't reassurance. People love talking to you. You were just kind of a bright spark every day. It was great to see you and everybody loved your energy and you were great announcing our panel. You were fantastic. So we all it was a pleasure meeting you. You were so much fun. I was going to take a crack at Jesse, but I'm not going to. Anyway, so
I have to say, in my support group earlier today, people talked about their roses, buds, and thorns, and a lot of people were talking about the conference. Multiple people mentioned how your introductions to the panels were like the thing that made them the happiest throughout the entire conference because you like got people amped. It was just your energy. So many people knew who you were just based on that and just loved you. So
also for those of you that maybe not be commenting or it's your first time, we're going to talk about the conference, but please, if you have questions about OCD or related disorders, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. And we are happy to answer any questions that you have. So my first conference was 2010, and it was actually meant to be an exposure for me because I was scared to travel and leave my parents. So my treatment team made me go, and it was in DC at that time. And I think I spent most of the time in the room with the exception of a couple panels that I was forced to go out on. Ethan, I like, just got that. Cash wrote, Ethan as a surname.
I get it. That took me a second. Sorry.
It took me a quick second, but that's very funny. And I definitely was triggered in a lot of different ways. I was sort of at my worst at that time. And so, I know lots of people are there really struggling in the midst of treatment. And so a couple of times I did try to reach out to people and connect, but overall it was really challenging. I think I spent a lot of time to myself. The second time I went was 2012 and I spoke for the first time. I'll tell you that I hear what you're saying, Jonathan, and I know I'd be curious to challenge your. I know that it felt that way. I'm curious, Jonathan, if you talk to anybody, who you talk to, if you had any good conversations, even on Saturday when you were really struggling, if there were times that you laughed. It's really easy to look around and sort of see, friends and parents and family members and going together. But what's interesting is being on sort of the behind the scenes and talking to so many people that go, they all feel that way. So many people feel alone or isolated or scared or anxious or socially awkward or different. And I would say that so many of the lived experience community feel that way when they're at the conference. And what's interesting is, I always encourage people to go up to somebody that maybe looks like they're not having quite as much fun or looks a little sad or upset and say, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is there anything you'd like to talk about? And so, what's interesting, Patrick, hello.
Hi, Patrick.
It just got real.
Patrick and I had the best conference selfie. That was the highlight.
But, it's interesting, Jonathan, because, though, you present a lot of times what you want people to see, and we don't always know how you're feeling. But from my perspective, I saw you always talking to different people and hanging out and being present. And I'm not saying that you didn't feel bad, or I'm not, saying that's not how you felt, but at least from an outsider's perspective, I saw you engaged and participating and present. And so, it may not have been exactly, and I'm sure you had those feelings and thoughts, but simultaneously, I might give yourself a little credit, for the things that you did do that were really special, because I know you definitely made a difference at the conference. But also I relate to everything that you said. And yes, managing time, managing energy, being on very little sleep. It's just this super intense, compact 3-day event. And you are definitely worn down by the end of it and are just emotionally exhausted. Katie.
Yes.
Same question.
Oh, yeah. So it's really interesting for me, and for folks who just came on, and hi, Annie, and hi, Nikki, and just, oh my goodness, so good to see folks. But the question we were talking about, kind of first conferences and things that are maybe challenging and things that are meaningful. And I very much remember the first time I went to a conference. It was in 2018, and it was in Washington, D.C., and I was absolutely terrified. I was kind of at rock bottom with my OCD. My therapist forced me to go. It was when they were still doing little stickers on name tags if you wanted to be a media star or quote unquote have your picture taken. And I did not want my picture taken. I did not want anybody to know I was there. I stayed in my room and didn't talk to anybody and went to the one support group and the one session that my therapist forced me to go to. And at every mealtime, took off my badge, raced down the elevator, and walked as far as I could down the street because I was so just scared to talk to anybody. And I think for me, it was a lot of different layers. It was fear that no one would understand me because of the graphic nature of my intrusive thoughts. It was fear that everybody already knew each other and that I wouldn't make any friends. It was fear that people would think I was weird or that I wouldn't be seen. I mean, just all of that. And just, it was really interesting because the one support group that I was kind of forced to go to that first year, it was actually the first time that I had heard somebody who had the same experience as me, which at the time was harm and kind of false memory OCD. And I remember going back to my room and being like, oh my gosh, like I've been trying to avoid absolutely everyone here thinking they'll hate me. And these are my people. Like they actually get me. And I ended up flying out the next day. I was just there for like one one day that was forced by, again, my therapist. But I the next year came back and was a little bit more social, and then COVID happened. But by the time I came back from that, I was actually advocating and kind of into the community and things like that. And I started to realize that I made a great friend and a great husband. Yes, Ethan and I actually met at the OCD Georgia walk. And he was sitting across from me. And Patrick, you will appreciate knowing he has no recollection of meeting me. So clearly I am very memorable.
Nothing is sacred.
I know.
I actually also thought, who's the friend? I know I'm the husband, but I was like, I wonder who the friend is. And Patrick's saying,
well, I made a friend in Patrick too. Patrick, you're the friend. You're all these people are the friends. And yeah, now I'm stuck with.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
Morgan, we wouldn't have it any other way. And I think for me, gosh, more recent conferences, here's what I'll say. I mean, it's a both and. Coming back from, well, this conference, this was probably the busiest conference that I've ever had, and felt pulled in 10,000 directions and got to talk to so many different awesome humans. And I'm coming back definitely feeling the conference blues, feeling sad and feeling like I miss folks, and also feeling exhausted and like I got run over by a truck, maybe by like 15 trucks. I think a lot of us probably feel like that from the exhaustion and lack of sleep and kind of just all of that. But I don't know. It's such a sacred place. It really is. And every time I come back from these, I'm reminded, hey, we are not alone in these experiences. And we get to do this together. And I think what I get to continue to carry is, even when we aren't together in person, that this is a community that literally all over the world, we get to kind of support each other. Yeah, Violet, totally feeling run over by a truck. Definitely. But I do want to name, just going back, and then I'll stop talking because I feel like I just rambled about a whole bunch of different things. Sorry, Ethan, I know this is your show. But for Jonathan, gosh, I think even when we've been so many times, and you might not even recognize, even when it feels, so like for me and Ethan, it might look, when you are watching us, like we know everybody there. I want you to know, I still look at folks and struggle and feel sometimes like an outsider, or feel like people don't want to talk to me, or feel like I don't have any friends. And I think that is such an OCD dynamic that it always makes us feel like we are the one that either nobody wants to be with, or isn't a part of it, or doesn't want to be seen. I still have the thoughts when folks come up and talk to me of, oh, do they really want to be talking to me, or do they just want to make me feel good? So they're coming to talk to me about scrupulosity, or, oh, are they just being nice by coming up to my booth? Or, oh, did I just really offend that person? Do they want me to stop talking now so they can walk in a different direction? I'm waiting for Patrick to write in the chat, yes, every time you're talking to me, I want you to stop so I can go in a different direction. But I think that's how OCD makes us often feel. And I think that imposter syndrome, that not good enough syndrome, often comes up. And I think it's such a beautiful exposure when we get to lean into all of that and hold all of that during the conference and say, screw you, OCD. I am making friends anyway. I am staying here anyway. Like Jonathan, like you, I am coming back tomorrow anyway. And all of that. And Zach, what you're mentioning is actually exactly just Ethan. Yeah, Ethan's like, Katie, stop talking to me. Zach, what you're mentioning, absolutely was what I was talking about for me in 2018, like 10,000%. I very, 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 like viscerally remember sitting at a Starbucks down the street from the conference in DC, trying to figure out if I had murdered somebody, and thinking, if I walk back to the conference and tell anybody what I'm navigating, what I'm feeling, they're going to tell me I don't have OCD. They're not going to want to talk with me. They're not going to want to hang out with me. They're going to call the police on me. And I think that to me felt like I was so different. And when I actually started to really engage and be a part of and open up to the community, I started to, well, this sounds kind of bizarre, but I realized there were like 5 people in the support group that I was with later that night who also were worried that they had killed somebody. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are my people. But Zach, I want you to hear, you are not outside of the community. I felt the same way. I think so many people do. And we're really excited for when you get to come to Seattle as an exposure. And now, Jesse, benefit. I do have easy access to murder Ethan. That has really been my plan this entire time.
Why did I not see that comment?
It's on the Facebook side, Jesse 724. You don't see it?
Oh, it just came up. Sorry, I had an error on my side.
Okay, it was secret. Jesse was just giving me permission to murder you. It's fine.
It's fair. I appreciate that.
So I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Ethan, because I just rambled about I don't know what for quite a while.
Can't we just sit with the belief that you may have murdered me and roll with that?
So who are you right now? Are we going to get into existential themes? Are you even really here?
Who?
Yeah, exactly. That's like what my boyfriend in high school did to me.
You can tell the story if you want to.
Well, I feel like it's kind of an irrelevant story for what we're here talking about.
Well, now you set it up.
So when okay. Oh, and Annie, if you're missing, it's because some folks are on Facebook and some are on YouTube. So you can only see the ones that are do not murder Mr. O'Dunbank. Yeah. So when I was in high school, I was dating a guy named Max. Max, if you're out there, hello. And him and all of his friends. What?
It's so true. I feel that way every time I go to Katie's office. I'm like, she has a bunch of degrees, and all I have is signed movie posters: Willy Wonka, Spaceballs, Goonies, Christmas Story. God bless you, Morgan.
Love you, Morgan. Anyway, so I was dating this guy named Max, and he got all of his friends, including all of our teachers in our kind of small private school, in on this whole thing where they were going to pretend for a day that he didn't actually exist and that I had been making him up for my entire time through high school. So all the teachers and all the other students got in on it, and I would like talk to him, and they would say, Katie, he's not actually there, and you've been talking to him for such a long time, and we really can't continue to go with this. So he was pretending he didn't exist, and then the teachers and all the students were pretending he didn't exist. I had OCD at that point, and partially existential OCD, so this was actually super mean and totally freaked me out, and it was not a good joke. So that was the story.
What's weird is I asked your mom about Max, and she'd never
The
heard.
teachers were in on it. Morgan, like no joke. I was talking to him during class, and my science teacher was like, Katie, you really have to stop. There's nobody sitting next to you. And I was like, what is going on? It was so bananas.
I talked to your mom about Max, and she said she never heard of him.
Stop. You aren't going to do this to me right now.
So the conference, for those of you that didn't go, it's an amazing experience. It really, really is. There was a hybrid track this year, virtual, so you could attend a lot of the sessions virtually. And hopefully as it continues to grow, we're able to integrate more and more virtual options and opportunities into it. But being there is really special for sure. And I posted in the chat that every year, and I think people may not know or realize, but every year there are volunteer opportunities if you can get there. Volunteering is super easy. Jonathan did this year, and it covers the registration cost, and there's all kinds of other ways to support financially. Yeah, James, that's why I asked before. I don't see a specific question, so please feel free to ask again in the chat, and we're happy to answer your question. I agree, Lana. Katie does look cute. But with all of that being said, I think it's important to know that the conference really can be what you make it. And I really want to push to talk about this next year, early on, which is, you can craft the conference in your own way. You can go to whatever talks you want. You can take breaks. You can go to and from talks. I think we put a lot of rules on ourselves. All of these are, James, all of your comments are. So just feel free to just reload the question in the comment and post it, and we'll be able to answer your question. No problem. And so, there's no right or wrong way to do the conference. You can go from one panel to the next and hip and hop, during that same hour. You can go to lunch early. You can take a break. It's really hard to pace yourself because there's so much excitement and stimulus and things like that. But, if you have any questions or comments or want to know any conference hacks or anything like that, as we get closer to the next one, we were so happy to tell you more. And Violet said the key, which is I learned it is absolutely, Katie went to the conference last year, and really it was her first time doing a gazillion things at the conference. And I told her before she went, I was like, make sure you schedule breaks and time to go upstairs and things like that. And she's like, oh, I will, and didn't. And by the end of it, she was run over by a tank. Funny enough, I scheduled breaks this year and took time to myself, and I still felt like I was run over by a tank. So, but the best tank, the best possible tank. So
yeah, that's what I always say. I always say I've been run over by like 16 buses, but they're all really happy buses. How did I do this year with taking breaks, Ethan?
Katie was horrible, but I will say that if you were at the booth, perhaps you saw, I mean, if you were at the conference, I apologize. If you were at the conference, perhaps you saw her booth. It was the bright pink one that you couldn't miss with the big Plinko board. And she was a busy girl. So I totally understand that there wasn't a whole lot of times for breaks. That just speaks to her willingness to want to be there and support as many people as possible all the time. And nothing but love and respect for that. Vivida wrote, people say that mental health issues will always be there, but you only learn how to deal with them. Maybe some. I think that's an interesting statement. I think that well, I'm going to actually continue what you wrote. People say the mental health struggles will always be there, but you get better at dealing with them. Is that true? Like it will always be with the person for life? It's a great question. So if we're specifically talking about OCD, then technically it is a chronic illness. There is no cure. But it's always a hard thing for me to say in the sense that I think there is freedom from OCD, and through proper treatment, whether that's behavioral therapy, medication, exposure response prevention, and compared at least to where I was and where Katie was, I was bedridden, unable to function, and now I have a really full life. And there may be days where I'm compulsing or obsessing, and other days where I'm not. If this is what chronic looks like, I will take it because I am very, very, very happy. And life is also hard. So, yes, that is true to a certain extent, but I also think that, it will always be with you. Is true to an extent, but simultaneously you can live a pretty OC free life, by doing and working on the skills and tools that you're given. I can't speak to other mental health disorders. Katie may know a little bit more about mental health struggles in general, but.
Well, and I want to jump off of what Vipin is saying at 7:31. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but thank you so much for this comment. The no cure, what you say, right? Like that can feel super jarring and super scary. And I remember saying that exact same thing and thinking, well, what's the point? Like, if there's no cure, why am I doing all of these things? What does that even look like? And I want you to hear like so loud and clear that you can live a life where OCD is no longer in the driver's seat, where it is not continuing to impact you, where you can live a joyful, big, awesome, wonderful life. And we actually did a talk a couple of years ago, Ethan and I, with Shala Nicely and Kimberly Quinlan it was called No Cure, So What? Living a joyful life anyway. And I really believe that that's the case, that with evidence-based treatments like exposure and response prevention, we can get to a place where, yeah, technically OCD is chronic, but where you may never meet the diagnostic criteria for OCD ever again. And even like Liz Mackingale, for instance, in her intro to the keynote address at the conference this weekend, talked about the way that she's really shifted in how she views treatment and even the chronic nature of OCD, where she used to really think that there was kind of this push and pull and that you would navigate that in some ways forever. And now she sees that, yeah, as you navigate OCD, but you're, able to live really a full life where it doesn't impact you and where you're not negotiating with OCD. So I think that's, yeah, I was thinking that might be the case. Cash. Thank you. Yeah. I was starting to think that, but yeah, I think that's really, really important. And I want you to know, if you're hearing this, that when we say chronic, we're not saying you're going to suffer with OCD forever. Oh my gosh, I thought that was so the case in my own life. And it's not. Like, you are so freaking worthy of engaging in treatment and getting to a place where OCD no longer impacts you. And even John Hirschfield wrote an article called The Cure to OCD is Knowing That There Is No Cure. And the idea is that each and every day you wake up and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have some stuff get a little sticky today, but I have the skills and tools to deal with it so that we can dominate OCD. Yes, that exact thing. That is what we are going for. Yeah, troll in the dungeon. Yeah, Zach, I looked above and I was like, maybe this is, but I hate saying someone is a troll or isn't because I want everyone to feel included. Yeah, so thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we like to get, if they're not saying something overtly obvious trollish, like anything inappropriate, I like to give it a few seconds just to make sure, a few minutes just to make sure I don't want to ban anybody or block anybody that is sincerely trying to be here. I remember back in the day when somebody else was saying things on here loudly, Cash. But you know, we learn to get your personality, and your personality is my personality, so I freaking love you. Anyway, so
Davida, so glad that's helpful. Yeah, I think that's so important for you to hear. Like, so
and just to add on to that, you know, it's like, do you know people with you know, diabetes that are in the Olympics, right? Or do you have friends with other chronic conditions, migraines or epilepsy, you know, that are living beautiful lives anyway, and they may have, you know, a rough patch, you know, here and there, and but in between, you know, they're living really meaningful lives. You know, there's a few things that come up for me when we talk about this. The first thing is, I think when you're dealing with OCD and if you're in treatment and navigating, you know, it feels so exhausting. And I think a lot of us think that that's what it will be like the rest of our lives, to have to fight OCD that hard and live with that exhaustion on a daily basis. And that is not the case. You know, the reality is, if you really are able to access treatment and surrender to ERP or whatever modality of treatment you're doing, the effort that you have to put in to fighting OCD becomes easier and easier, and almost automatic or involuntary, you know. And so that fatigue and tiredness starts to dissipate, where you don't have to fight so hard. Now, that doesn't mean if you're going through something difficult in life, you have a death in the family, or you have a big move, or, you know, some big life event, OCD can get loud, and then you have to like up your game a little bit. But even then, it's a lot easier once you have all those skills and tools under your belt. So that was the first point on that. And you know, the second thing is, I loved what Morgan said up here, which is, you get to a point where you forget the details of the really bad times, which is amazing. I totally relate to that comment. It used to be that I could only pick out the bad times. Like, if I thought back to, you know, X vacation or X trip or X experience, like, I only recalled what was negative about it. And it's completely inverse for me now. I think of really all the amazing times and all of the wins. And one of the best examples I ever gave, not ever gave, but one of the best examples I gave at one point was when I went on a cruise in 2019, and with one of my friends, and they hit like the roughest seas they'd hit in 5 or 6 years. And I get motion sick, and I have emetophobia, and like that first night, I was so ill and so miserable, and I was having panic attacks, and I was freaking out, and I was messaging my therapist. I like literally for a second considered just jumping off the ship and swimming to shore, even though that's not real and I would die. But like, I was like, I need to get medevaced out of here. Anyway, I was miserable, and I couldn't believe I had chosen this as my vacation. And I absolutely hated it. And, you know, after about 25 or 30 hours or something, things started to ease up. I started to embrace the discomfort, you know, and I just kind of went, okay, you know what? I don't have a lot of control over this, but, you know, I have 7 more days. So let's just go with the flow and see what happens. And I had the best vacation. I had so much fun. And, you know, when I look back at the vacation, it takes me a minute to remember that 24 to 36 hours, because for me, you know, that vacation was mostly phenomenal. It was not my honeymoon cruise. No, it was actually before I'd met Katie, or just as I'd met Katie, actually.
Yeah, we had just become friends when you went.
Yeah, we just became friends. So, suffice to say that, you know, more good times than bad, more good days than bad days, more good hours than bad hours, more good seconds than bad seconds. You can go as small as you want to. Hey, Casey Smith. But the bottom line is that, you know, that's just a perfect example of the way I kind of view my life, in the sense that, like, yeah, things happen, and those were just things. And ultimately, if I can make the most out of the rest of it, then that's really what I ultimately remember. And so, yes, that happened, but it was such a blip in the grand scheme of things. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely.
I'll always take hearts from Casey. So thank you, Casey.
Absolutely. And I love Patrick said at 7:30, if OCD was helpful, then my job would be to hand it out. Yeah, OCD is never helpful. And that's one thing I always like to really emphasize, that OCD is not a cute quirk. It's not something that's helpful. It's not something that makes us more effective. I always like to remind folks that, we are all amazing, awesome humans, and often OCD kind of tries to cover up all of the things that make us unique and talented and this, that, and the other. And it's actually when we get to break the OCD down that the true amazing us gets to continue to shine. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we're having was that a troll piece too?
I think so. I don't know. We'll give him a third time to charm. I've never had, well, maybe once before, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Casey wrote, all the way from Hawaii, heard a therapist once say, make the rest of it the best of it, aka let's control what we can control, not OCD, but how we move through it. Yeah. And I like that. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Casey.
So yeah, Zach just said what I was thinking. They are the most polite trolls. They're like, excuse me, I can't ask my question.
Or they're just really bad at it. Or they have OCD. Maybe they have OCD and they're trolls. We don't know. I'm sure someone will pop up soon and we'll find out.
That's so tracks. That's the most accurate thing. So, I mean, Ethan, for folks coming back from the conference too, and I know we said we want to talk about more than just conference stuff too, but I also wanted to name, I think, what were some of our highs from the conference? We can totally talk about that too. I was just going to name, for me, and anybody else might be experiencing this too, I had the best, most exhausting time at the conference. And coming back from the conference for me is always really tough. And I think there's a little bit of a low. I've heard from a number of folks who are advocates and individuals with OCD and also clinicians and providers that they're feeling kind of some conference blues right now. And that's kind of what this is all about. And we want folks to know that if you're feeling that, you're not alone. And I don't think that's unique to the conference. I think that's anything that we look forward to for a really long time. I know so many folks were counting down to the conference. We had so many folks traveling internationally and kind of waiting for the conference. And we go on the big thing, we do the big thing, and then you come back and it's like, okay, now what do I look forward to? And I think sometimes there's some grief in that. There is some sadness in that. And so many of us with OCD kind of have trouble feeling big emotions. I'll say for me in particular, I have trouble feeling big emotions. Feeling big emotions is scary. And sometimes it kind of feels more comfortable for us to go into compulsions. And I will name that my OCD has been a little sticky since getting back from the conference. And that is something that's been a little bit challenging. And Ethan has been so great at naming where I've been a little bit extra sticky and a little bit extra loopy in these moments. But I like to really name and want folks to hear that if that's something that you're experiencing post-conference or post anything, you are absolutely not alone. Trouble feeling big emotions? Yeah, Morgan, so many of us, and for me, this is something I'm working through. I will be completely honest. This is, I showed in one of the live streams recently my gingerbread emotion person, but everyone thought it was creepy, so I'm not going to do that again. But working through, what does it mean to let ourselves feel joy, but also sadness or anger or grief? That's really tough. And I think for me, often it feels more comfortable to do a compulsion and to try to get rid of the feelings. There is definitely a lot of misunderstanding about OCD in the world.
So sure. I'm just reading a bunch of the things. So, it's interesting, Beth wrote, it's like coming back from vacation. Yeah. And it is, but I had a very interesting conversation. I'm going to star Stella's question here in a second. I had a really interesting conversation with someone on Sunday, the last day of the conference, when they were from the UK, and they were talking about, this was their first conference, and they were talking about how, they had come to feel really at home and feel safe. And, they were going back to the UK and they're in a very cutthroat job and the people aren't very nice and they don't understand OCD and anxiety. And, and she was kind of like, I have to leave this. And, how is this going to work? What am I going to do now? What, they have a therapist in the US, but like, what does this all mean now? Sorry, hold on a second. I have to keep blocking.
I don't know. Is that a troll thing? Because
This last thing is, yes.
No, that could be an OCD thing, though. You know, because sometimes there can be like a, I don't know. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, if he comes back on.
Okay.
I just think, I don't know.
I don't know. Tonight's been a weird trolly night.
Yeah. My point is that the way that this individual saw leaving was just that she was losing something. She was leaving and losing this amazing thing that she had discovered. And what I wanted to do was reframe the experience for her and tell her that no, in fact, she had discovered this amazing thing. She was bringing that thing back with her, the relationships, the information, the people that she met, what she learned, and simply knowing that that's out there. You know, we can't eternally live on vacation. We can't eternally live, you know, all together in this great big community. But what we can do is find ways to stay in touch, find ways to stay connected, whether it's through community conversations or email or support groups or the IOCDF or phone calls or not alone notes, right? There's so many amazing ways to stay connected to this group of individuals. And so I really wanted to focus on this idea of you weren't leaving something, you were actually bringing a community with you, this wonderful, beautiful thing that you discovered, and you were better for it. You're better for it, and you're more equipped to face OCD, to battle OCD, to beat OCD. And now you know you have thousands of people behind you that are going through the same thing and that are doing it with you and supporting you in that. Mm-hmm. And so if you feel that way, if you felt like leaving, it's like, oh, I'm alone now. You know, you're not. And I'm not. Of course, you have feelings of loneliness or sadness. Maybe you are isolated or live. You know, I relate to all of that in many, many ways. But I just want you to know that, you know, you are richer and in a better place because of the things that you did and learned. Even if you had a hard time at times, even if it was a struggle, you know, you don't grow unless you face adversity. That's where growth comes from. So if you went and you struggled, or you went and you had a great time, or you went, whatever you did, you know, you are now stronger for it. And you are that much closer to the life that you dream of living. And, you know, we're right here 2 days later together again, maybe not quite in the same way, but you know, it's, we're doing this. So I just kind of want to help you kind of reframe if you're feeling a little bit lonely. I do want to get to this question: is extreme fatigue a symptom of OCD? I will tell you that, you know, while OCD in and of itself, fatigue isn't necessarily, you know, a direct symptom of OCD. Constant obsessing and compulsing, engaging in compulsive actions and behaviors, resisting, all of that can make you extremely tired. So technically no, but the short of it is yes, absolutely. Whether you're experiencing just constant, near constant obsessive thoughts, near constant compulsions, whether physical or mental, and constantly trying to resist and fight through and white knuckle, even if you have, you know, if you don't have any treatment or haven't been through treatment, just fighting every day is absolutely exhausting. And so absolutely, that is a common thing that we see with OCD, 1000%.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm keeping up. We're having a conversation about trolls over here too. And us now all worrying that we're trolling accidentally.
Didn't we have somebody at the conference that was trollish?
Trollish?
I was kidding. It was a joke on Polish.
Oh, okay. I do want to ask Ethan too. I would love for you to answer. Zach asked a little while ago, what was our favorite part of the conference?
You go first. I just went on a 3-minute diatribe, so you go ahead.
Oh, I'm not ready with mine yet. I had so many parts I liked.
I mean, my favorite part, my highlight of the conference, and we should all lean in and troll now. Definitely, I'm in for that, Zach. I think we should. I actually
depends on the IOCDF account. He's going to start.
I literally almost posted something like trolling on myself and realized it would come up IOCDF, and I was like, I'm not doing that. As somebody comes back to it later and doesn't know this conversation. You know, my highlight of the conference is the same every year. except that I got a little bigger dose of it this year because of the way I organize my schedule. And that's just talking with all of you, honestly, sharing stories, one-on-one conversations in the hallways. There's my trollish friend. Lucas is here. Were your ears burning, Lucas? That's a U.S. and American phrase, as if we were talking about you and you must have heard and joined. Welcome, welcome. Stories in the hallways, connecting with you one-on-one or two-on-one or three-on-one, but a group of you, sharing how you're doing and how you impacted me or I impacted you. At the end of the day, when I talk about advocacy, that's what advocacy is in its simplest, truest form, just boiled down. There's so many great times and great memories and great things we do at the conference, and I can think of a lot of them, but what my heart is always most full from when I come back from the conference is just meeting new people, meeting people that I've met online but haven't met in person, and just knowing that people are getting better and talking and they're there and they're feeling better or we're there to support. And those are always the highlights. So I had lots of interactions like that. I had some fun interactions. I had some sad interactions. I had some heartbreaking interactions. But they all ended with the same thing, which is they all ended with hope, right? Whether it was hope for me, hope for them, hope for getting better, hope for changes in legislation, hope for insurance, or whatever it was, every conversation ended with a feeling that everything's going to get a little better. And that for me was the highlight. What about you, Katie?
Yeah, it was definitely the conversations, for sure. And I was thinking about it's hard, to pinpoint one. I think for me, I had a couple conversations this year that were a little bit different with parents, that came up after, especially my first talk. I've talked a lot about hope and some of what we talked about tonight with maybe the kind of chronic nature, but there's still being hope to live a really big, beautiful, awesome life. The best conversations happen in the hallways. 10,000%. And oh, Margaret, I love that. I love that y'all got to visit. But I think for me, I had a couple interactions where parents came up and said, "Oh, hi, sorry, I keep stopping what I'm saying."
No, just
things. No, I know. I get distracted. I want to read all the things. And so I totally lost what I was saying. I was trying to figure out if okay. So with the parent kind of component, sorry, y'all, I got a little distracted here. I had a couple different parents come up to me after that first talk and say, well, my child is feeling the same way that you do. And, I've been in this place as a parent of feeling like, well, if this is chronic, what hope is there for my child, or how could they possibly get better? And I heard a couple of parents said, well, in hearing you talk about this and hearing you talk about how low you were at a certain point, I have hope that, my child can get the right treatment and may still have OCD, but can live a really awesome life and maybe not just function, but actually thrive and do the things that bring them joy. And that was really, really, really special. So I think conversations like that, but also conversations for me throughout the weekend, in a lot of kind of talks, but also at our Stick with the Ick booth, which thank y'all who mentioned, yes, it was big and giant and pink and plinkoed, and you could absolutely not miss it if you tried because it was a little excessive. But I think the conversations there were around primarily religious scrupulosity, but also religious trauma. And it was really neat to get to talk to people who had challenging experiences in spiritual spaces and let them know that they are seen and known and affirmed and loved, and that they can engage in spirituality, whatever that looks like for them, and engage in evidence-based treatment at the same time. And it was neat. I had some conversations at the booth from folks across different traditions, that it was really beautiful and really, really surprising to me that they hadn't necessarily heard that from anyone before. So that was very cool.
Lucas, I'm guessing you're James, and I apologize if you were sincerely asking a question, because there are lots of sexual taboo, intrusive thoughts that occur. I'm reading your comments now. I'm not going to post them up on this page just because we have some kids in the room. But my question to you is, what is your fear associated with that? Because I see you're talking about guilt and you know, you had a thought. I'm curious. Yes, Lovelon, I totally agree. Lucas was brave for asking that sensitive question. But my question is, what are you afraid of from that happening? So what is the thought now? A bad person, that you might be sexually attracted to the relative or family member? I just want to get a better sense of kind of what you're struggling at with that, if you don't mind adding that little bit of information to it.
Yeah, and I want to name too, and that's what I was thinking, kind of with the last piece. I think it was hard to tell because I think it was weeding out words and making it look. So I do apologize for us thinking that
we just like to protect the community and make sure that everybody here is in a safe space. But so thank you for bearing with us.
I want to name, I am somebody throughout my own journey who has had both violent and sexual intrusive thoughts. And I think what you just named is actually something that's really common. So I agree with Ethan. I'd love to hear kind of what that core fear piece is so that we can respond to you more fully. And really, that is brave of you for asking that. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions coming in. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Katie.
I was going to say, I also hear Morgan proposal for next year. Best conversations happen in the hallway. 10,000%. So Morgan, so funny. I was thinking about this on the plane on the way home and wrote a note in my phone and was trying to think of a name other than speed dating so that we could do an activity that was like speed dating, but speed friendshipping, like the first day of the OCD conference. So loop back to me if you want to do this.
Multiple people at the conference mentioned that we should also do speed dating for singles at the conference.
Oh, that people probably would really like that too.
Yeah. So, so Lucas wrote, actually, I know that I'm not attracted to my relative, but I was doing the action when the thought came, and that causes guilt. Katie, I'll let you handle this.
Yeah, this is Lucas. This is so incredibly common, and sending you big, giant hugs. I actually hear this from folks often, whether it relates to like a sexual encounter or anything else where they might have an image of a loved one or an image of someone that they don't want to see. And what I often tell folks is this is just the same way that we think of intrusive thoughts. When we have intrusive thoughts or intrusive images or intrusive urges, it isn't the stuff that we actually want to be thinking about. And actually having kind of random images and thoughts throughout the day are pretty normal, even around things like sex. But our OCD says it's not. And really, for most people, the image or the thought would float in and out of their minds and they wouldn't get stuck on it. But for somebody with OCD, you immediately go, oh my goodness, why did I just have a thought of my relative? What does this mean about me? I need to get rid of this thought. And we know that the more that we try to get rid of it, the more it comes on stronger and the more we give it meaning and the more that we feel like there's something wrong with us for having it. So this is actually so common. And then we end up getting kind of funneled and just stuck in the guilt of what does it mean that my relative or this person that I care about came up in the midst of this interaction. I want you to hear that it doesn't actually mean anything about you. And I know that that's super hard and it might be easy for you to say that to anybody else, but it might feel like, no, but for me, this is different. And this is somebody that I really love and care about. And what does this mean? And I want you to hear it doesn't mean anything. OCD has kind of placed meaning around it. And I think there's a really awesome opportunity here, whether you're working with your therapist or whether you are doing ERP in some capacity, to really practice letting the feelings be there, to practice not trying to get rid of that image and to know that you are in fact not doing anything wrong, that an intrusive image, just like an intrusive thought, is just a thought. And this is actually something even that came up in some of the sex and OCD talks this weekend. It's something that I talk with people a lot about around sex and scrupulosity. It just pops up. It just pops in, and it is not a reflection of you or your true desires. It's ego dystonic. But again, the more we try to get rid of it, the more we feel blah.
And ego dystonic is?
Ego dystonic is it opposes the things that we deeply care about or opposes our actual values or the things that we're actually attracted to. So Lucas, it does not at all mean that you were engaging in that action to the intrusive thought. I know that it can feel like that. And I don't want to get into, a reassurance cycle, but I do think for education, it's really important to at least kind of say that the first time that you weren't doing anything wrong, but this is definitely something to talk to a therapist or an OCD specialist about, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because it leaves some great opportunities for exposure and response prevention so that we don't continue to get stuck in that guilt loop. That's, I think, really, really important to know. So thank you, Lucas, for sharing that. And you are so not alone.
And the other thing I'll add is just keep in mind that thoughts are involuntary. We can focus them, but they're involuntary. And feelings are involuntary. We feel thoughts are not facts. Feelings are not facts, though it can make us individuals with OCD feel like that's the case, right? So things will pop in and out of your head at any given time, right? It doesn't mean that you were specifically trying to think of that while you were doing something. So just to add to everything that Katie said, but also add the piece that there's, these are involuntary things. And ultimately, that's why we don't try to control thoughts. We don't try to stop thoughts. We don't try to control feelings. We don't try to stop feelings or stop feeling. What we do is try to, decide on how we want to respond to our thoughts and feelings. So, the question is more along the lines of, responding to the thing that happened and how do you want to choose moving forward?
Well, and even what Lucas just said, I was trying that and I don't want that thought, right? So I want to name, and I always have to grab a prop for this. I think this is really important.
Oh gosh. Am I going to have to block you?
Me?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I didn't know what the prop was. Go ahead.
Oh, you don't have to block me. It was. So Lucas, if we put up here and I'm like, Lucas, do not think of a pink elephant. Whatever you do, don't think of a pink elephant. That means you're a bad person. If you think of a pink elephant, come on, that means something awful, about you. What are we going to think of? We're going to think of a pink elephant, right? And it's the same with this. If we're stuck in a cycle where it's like, ooh, in the midst of sex or masturbation or self-pleasure or anything like that, if we're like, I cannot think of this image that I just had, or I cannot think of a family member because this means something awful about me, we're going to think of it. That's where our brain's going to go. And we're going to keep getting stuck around it. But if we do the opposite, if we're like, yeah, I can have whatever intrusive image I want, I am not going to give this any energy. That's where we kind of take back power and we just get to continue to step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you also that I've had the same thing happen to me. So, and I've had vivid dreams about things as well, and woke up freaked out and took lots of showers, and it's okay. It's okay. It's normal. Real quick, I know we're out of time, but I want to get to two quick questions, which is, Stella, did the majority of people with OCD come from previously experienced trauma? So there are individuals that experience trauma, and and that sort of activates the OCD. And there's lots of individuals that did not experience trauma, and and still have OCD. I don't know that there is a correlation between trauma and OCD, but it isn't the only reason people can start to experience OCD. So the belief is that, there's a biological component to OCD, and that people are either, show it from an early age, like I did, or technically, quote unquote, born with it, right? Or they're predisposed to it, and different things can activate that predisposition, whether that's puberty, whether that's going to college, whether that's a death in the family, a trauma, giving birth, or being pregnant, right? There's a number of things that can sort of activate the OCD. And so trauma can be a piece of it, but those who have OCD, they don't have OCD just because there was trauma. There's lots of individuals that don't have trauma that also have OCD as well. Anything to add to that, Katie? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that that's really significant. And I think I always just like to note that trauma and OCD can become kind of intertwined in different ways. And I think it can be really important to work with an OCD specialist who knows trauma, or maybe even to work with an OCD specialist alongside a trauma specialist. And sometimes engaging in things like cognitive processing therapy or prolonged exposure, either before or during or post ERP, can be really, really helpful. I see this a lot, and I always like to name and work with religious scrupulosity, where often religious trauma or spiritual abuse can get super, super intertwined. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to give a little plug for, if anyone is passionate about this topic, Caitlin Pinciotti and I just got IRB approval on a new study. It's just a survey that you can take, and I can send you all the link if you would like it, but specifically on religious trauma, spiritual abuse, and religious scrupulosity. So it's really a passion that there's a lot of research happening around trauma and OCD, and I think it's a really important topic.
Absolutely. And we'll end with this, since that was kind of the conversation of the topic of tonight, which is ways to handle post-conference blues. Let's just rattle off a few and then we'll wrap up, Katie.
Post-conference blues, gosh. Self-compassion. I think I have been super, super hard on myself the last couple of days. I think when I come down from something really big, self-compassion is really, really important. I think it's also self-care. I think it's rest. And I think it's finding continued ways to plug into community, just like folks are doing tonight by showing up, doing things like this, where we have reminders that we're carrying our skills and tools and community home with us, even if we're in different places.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I would have said, honestly, is just self-compassion, grace, continuing to plug in, work your skills and tools, reach out to people. A cool thing is, have you met somebody? Did you meet somebody at the conference, or have you met somebody online or in a community conversation that you liked what they had to say, and maybe you haven't talked with them? Shoot them a message, send them an email. Is there anyone that you haven't connected with? There's a support group that you've been thinking about going to that you haven't. If you're feeling those conference blues, just like when OCD starts to kick up and you have to fight a little harder, maybe it's time to pick one thing that you haven't done before that further engages you into the community. I see Sam and Lana are talking about connecting, so I love that. So now's the time, dive in, and the idea is to foster a community year round. The IOCDF has done a really good job of not just making it about a conference once a year, which it felt like that for a long time. It's now lots of conferences and lots of programming, and we see you every week, and we're engaged, and there's opportunities for people to talk to one another and get support and share. And so, that's what I would challenge all of you to do is, pick one thing that you haven't done yet that's been on your mind that's related to supporting yourself and giving yourself love and compassion and engaging with someone, and take a step to do that. And then on the next talk, I'd love to know what everybody's done, and how they sort of fought off their conference blues, and they turned it into conference pinks.
Yeah, and to rainbows, which I see from Annie and from Kat.
We brought out the rainbow for sure.
And it does, Sam. It sucks to leave a community that understands you as you are. Absolutely.
But again, as I said, you bring the community with you, right? Like I know, I don't want to sound, I'm not saying that it isn't hard to leave that space, but how can we create that space in our lives in other ways? And, bringing those people with us, and how exciting that is.
I think about the first, sorry, I know we have to wrap up, but I think about the time I was attending the conference, the very first time that I was sharing with y'all when I didn't want to talk to anybody and I was scared and this, that, and the other. But after I attended that first support group, I remember flying back on the plane, and I got home and I kept thinking about the few people that I allowed myself to meet that I actually felt like saw me for the first time. And even like Zach was talking about earlier with harm related stuff, that I felt like, wait, maybe I'm not so different. And that was actually what gave me strength as I went home to actually lean into treatment and to start to step towards some things that were really hard, was remembering that, those 2,000 other people that I was surrounded by at the conference that were actually pretty awesome were doing the exact same thing I was. And that if I felt like they were deserving of stepping into their life, then maybe I was too. So I think there's something kind of neat as we go home too, about remembering that we have people in every pocket of the world who are with us and who are doing this with us, and that we get to walk with together. And that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. And thank you for all the kind comments. Really appreciate it. Great comments, and kind and sweet and kind. Words are not coming to mind at the moment, but love all of you. Katie, speaking of connection, don't you have something next week?
Oh, I do have something next week. Yeah. So next week we have, this was kind of flip-flopped a little bit this month post-conference, but next week we have an OCD 101, back to the basics. And it's actually with a number of the new IOCDF advocates who are going to be coming on here and sharing a little bit about their own OCD 101 journeys of diving in and starting treatment and what that looked like for them. So if you want to come on and talk to some of our new advocates and ask them questions about their treatment journeys, would absolutely love to have you. And yes, Morgan, Ethan O. Smith.
Well, we'll officially do a poll and let everyone in the community decide what our official last name will be. And then we'll just go with it. You good with that, Katie?
I'm good with, I also, Sam, thank you. Yeah, this is my favorite sweater. I love wearing this sweater. Thank you, Sam.
You can't be unhappy with Katie in the house. You just can't.
I do want to, and this may be my own moral scrupule.
It is, because I know what you're about to do.
I know, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
Okay.
y'all can stop me. If I do it a second time, y'all can stop me for compulsing. Lucas, I really am sorry.
Does she know that I muted her?
I was saying something all nice.
I know, but we already apologized. We're not going to do it again.
I was just letting, okay. So I
Sorry.
was just letting Lucas know that I was sorry that we thought he was trolling, and that I just wanted him to know that I think he's really brave for talking about
Agreed.
abusive thoughts on
Absolutely.
here, and that I think he probably helped a lot of other people to feel seen. And that was all I was going to say. If I say it again, y'all can yell at me for compulsing. I'll just go ruminate about it the rest of the night. It's totally fine.
Probably.
It's all good. Ethan gets to hear about it now.
Yes.
Totally fine.
Awesome. Sam. Wait, Cash. All right. I'm not showing up with this one again.
Yeah, Ethan's never having me back on this stream.
All right. Well, y'all are all. All right. Well, I'll post a video from the couch tonight where I sleep. So anyway.
Do not mute, Katie. Your mom is yelling at you.
This is my mother. I lost everyone.
Liz.
I'm alone.
Compulsion denied, Zach says.
Oh, look, it looks like we're having technical difficulties. Time to get off. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Y'all are amazing. Thank you to the IOCDF, as always, for having us. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow on all the social media channels as you want to get notified as we go live. I think I'll be on. We swap, so I might not be on for another 3 weeks, but we'll keep you updated. Keep an eye out for the ads on social. Michelle Whitkin in the house. Good to see you, Michelle. All right.
Michelle got to see me compulse. Sorry, Michelle.
So I tried to prevent it. I tried, but I got beat. Anyway, any last words, Katie, as we sign off?
Wait, what?
Any last words before we sign off?
Oh, I thought you said we're signing off. Sorry, I missed that. Last words before we sign off. No, just, it was such a joy to meet so many of y'all at the conference, and for folks who were there virtually, I know that it was great to connect with you even in that way as well. And even for folks that weren't there, it's just been great to be with you tonight, and want to keep reminding you that kind of the piece we talked about earlier with kind of the chronic nature of OCD, that no matter where you are in the journey, I want you to hear you are so freaking worthy of getting treatment, of getting better, and of stepping toward a big, beautiful, awesome life. And even if your OCD is telling you that that's not possible right now, which mine did, like not all that long ago, I want you to hear that OCD is lying, and that you are so worthy of experiencing life.
So with that, stay vigilant, feel the feels, don't let OCD off the hook. We will see you next week with Katie and me in a couple weeks after that.
Oh, can we go out with music since I have a dancing elephant? Can you do the music thing?
Sure.
Oh, I have another thing too.
This is weird. Goodbye, good night. I'm going to do the thing that they make me do.